This is the Nightline Friday night special.
She was a small-town family doctor who loved obstetrics. No one was more surprised than Claire Hicks when her life was turned upside down by AIDS.
Yes, I'm known as the AIDS doctor around here in this rural area.
Treating the disease is only half the battle in the rural South, where the fundamentalist church preaches that homosexuality is a sin.
They find out someone in the church is HIV positive or something, and then they don't want you there. I'm there, and I'm not going to let them run me out because, I believe. And, I know I've done bad things or I've sinned or whatever, but I've done no worse than nobody else. I've done no worse.
What breaks my heart is you got parents that won't even take their children back home. They don't want to have anything to do with their children.
A Baptist preacher who nursed his dying son at home for a year.
Hey, these are somebody's sons. These are somebody's daughters. These are somebody's children. And some of them are somebody's parents, even. And they're not second-class citizens.
Tonight, the journey of a country doctor.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Claire Hicks, whom many of you met yesterday, may have cringed a little when I described her as a hero, which is precisely the point. Dr. Hicks is anything but a self-promoter. Producer Laura Palmer had to convince Dr. Hicks that telling this story might do some good. Doing good is a deeply ingrained obligation in this daughter of a Southern Baptist doctor. It needs to be emphasized again that this is a woman who came to her role as the AIDS doctor reluctantly. The obligation fell to her in large measure because there was no one else around to shoulder the burden, but also because Claire Hicks is not in the business of distributing guilt or blame. The people who ultimately came to her for help already carried more than enough of that to go around.
But he was this very, very, very guilty man that I first met at the health department here, who came from a small town outside of this town. And he sought care there because he couldn't get it in his hometown. And he really was determined to commit suicide because he felt so guilty about his lifestyle. And so a lot of our first experiences were not about medical care at all. They were about, in that sense, they weren't about his CD4 counts and what we were doing with his HIV infection. They were about Buddy's guilt and was he going to last long enough? He was going to be saved from his own suicide for it to matter, the course of his HIV disease. He was a gay man who had lived in a small town and been in the closet and felt like homosexuality was wrong and was extremely guilty about that.
Perhaps one has to be a gay man in the Bible Belt to really understand how the fear of coming out of the closet can make one seriously contemplate suicide.
I was considering suicide because they were going to find out I was gay, not because I was HIV positive. Gay is a little more unacceptable, people are learning to comply with AIDS, but they still don't want to discuss or they don't want to think about gay people, We're all a bunch of degenerates. We're all, damned and all this stuff, so. But that's mainly from the influence of churches.
I realized moving back to South Georgia, that there was going to be a limit there. It's hard to meet people in a rural area. We don't have there's not a place to meet anymore. All of that's been pretty much in the past. A lot of people have gone back into the closet, even, to an extreme they have. We don't have a bar, we don't have a nightclub, we don't have gay restaurants, we don't have gay operated owned businesses, and there is a big limit there. I spend a lot of time by myself now. Dr. Claire Hicks is a godsend. I went to Dr. Hicks for the first time and was just really impressed. I mean, she was so personable. She was so interested in me and my needs. She made one statement that just stuck, that just, I guess, moved my heartstrings. We sat down and we talked, and we began to, become comfortable with each other and try to get to know each other. And she said, "There's nothing I can do to cure you, but I promise you that I will be here with you to make the rest of your journey as comfortable as I possibly can."
I remember my last patient with calluses, when he got enough purple lesions on his head that were noticeable. There wasn't any way he was going to go to his local hairdresser. So he went out of town. I've had patients that were asked not to come back to their hairdresser when kind of word got out that they were HIV positive. And, we've had churches ask folks not to come back because they were. So, we protect ourselves when we don't want to be hurt. And the way you do that with HIV in rural areas is you keep things a secret.
In rural America, HIV is still looked at as a gay disease. And that among the people that, the firmly religious and strictly religious people, that's all part of, it all ties in together. It really does. You're shunned a lot of the times. You're made to feel like that you're not as good.
Her son had died of AIDS, and they were at the funeral home, and the mother was standing by the casket looking at her son. And of course she was upset, because the boy was only like 26 years old. And another lady who was a friend of the family and all this stuff, and supposedly a devout, church-going Christian woman, walked up to her and put her hand on her shoulder. And she said to her, "He was such a nice young man. It's a shame he has to go to hell."
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Charles Schwab.
Shoppers have one. Travelers have one. PC buyers have one. Now investors have one too. Mutual Fund OneSource from Charles Schwab. OneSource can't promise investment success, but it does guarantee you'll never pay a load or commission on mutual funds. If your fund isn't part of OneSource, maybe you should look for one that is. OneSource, the second Schwab revolution.
You could never shave again. You could go into work tomorrow and tell them you're taking a year off. When people ask for your honest opinion, you could give it to them. But while you're considering these options, driving a Saab is a very good start. Lease a 96 Saab 900S 5-door for $269 a month.
Sunday on Brinkley, Senator Bob Dole faces the Brinkley panel in his first Sunday Network interview this year. How can he win the war for the Republican nomination? Sunday.
At Honda, we don't think a car that's affordable and exceptional is too much to ask for. After all, the Accord has carved out a nice niche being exactly that. And now with 3.9% APR financing for up to 48 months, its affordability is more clear-cut than ever. In fact, it's an offer so solid, it's carved in stone. Get 3.9% APR financing for 48 months on any Accord.
You won't be counting sheep when you sleep on a Sealy Posturepedic from Fish Furniture, but you will be counting the dollars you save during Fish Furniture's great mattress sale.
was the last
Claire Hicks' journey into rural AIDS began in 1988 with a gay couple who insisted that she be their AIDS doctor. She bluntly told them she was inexperienced in HIV care and suggested they go elsewhere. They refused. And over the next 2 years taught her not only about AIDS, but about how unprepared she was